Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Hey there, talent growers. Welcome back to another episode of the TalentGrow Show. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow, and this is an Ask Halelly episode, which is an episode where I answer a question from a listener to the show, a member of the audience of one of my conference speaking events or one of my corporate workshops, or a member of the media. This week's question is, how can I develop transferable skills now that can help me in my next job or in my dream job? And this is a great question that I'm really happy that you asked. And I look forward to sharing some really specific ideas with you that can help you right away, both to get the right mindset and also, more specifically, how to do it. So let's dig in. As I said before, and most recently in another solo episode, episode 150, I think every one of us is the only one that is ultimately responsible for our own development. And because of that, we really have to be proactive about assessing where we are right now and what's the gap between our current skill set and our desired skill set. And we should continue to intentionally seek development opportunities to help us close that gap and keep growing. And by being strategic and being intentional about our own self-development, we can truly be the master of our own career trajectory and the steward of our own career. I think taking ownership of your own development is the first step, and then actually diving into developing yourself is the second step. And that can take a lot of different forms. And I suggest being proactive and strategic and including a development lens to almost any activity that you're involved in. I wrote a lot of ideas about this in my book, Employee Development on a Shoestring, and I've shared them on my blog and in podcast episodes before. I think that a lot of professionals don't realize that all the time in every job, you're developing all kinds of skills. Some of those skills might be very technical, might be very job specific, like maybe operating certain machinery or programming certain proprietary software. But a lot of the skills that you build are completely transferable to new jobs, new organizations, and even new industries. So today, I'm going to share with you 5 ideas for the kinds of skills that I think are really important to have and that are totally transferable skills that I think you could build now while in your current role to help you transition into your dream job or into the next stepping stone on your career path along the way to your dream job, which is totally cool as well. Plus, I'm going to describe some specific non-training ideas for how you could develop those skills or competencies while you're still in your current job, either on the side or on the job with no budget, and a lot of times without even having your current employer's involvement, if that's not available or possible. Of course, it's really great if you got that, if they support you and they know what you're doing, but it's not a prerequisite. And these ideas, of course, build on methods that I wrote about in my book, Employee Development on a Shoestring. So are you ready? Let's begin. The first totally transferable skill idea is leadership skills. Probably not a big surprise, since everything I do is about leadership, that I would suggest that having leadership skills is probably something really good to work on. There is a need for all employees at every level of the organization who can demonstrate the capacity and willingness to lead others, whether that is in a bona fide leadership role, but also on projects, on special teams, and so forth. In episode 143, I described 3 specific ways that you can develop your leadership skills inexpensively. Those were volunteering, mentoring, and serving in special teams. So I'm not going to repeat myself over here too much, but I point you to that episode and cue that up for your next listening experience after this one to get some specifics on how you could develop leadership skills. My second idea for you for a totally transferable skill is communication skills. It's another really broad skill set that I think is really important and totally transferable, both written and oral communication skills. So you have to assess where you are in your communication skills and which one, if at all, you need to hone. There really isn't any job in the world that doesn't involve communicating clearly and effectively, and any employer will benefit from having you come on as a new employee, bringing with you the ability to communicate well. So what can you do in your current job that can help you become a more competent, more effective, more confident communicator? Well, let me give you a couple of ideas. One idea from my book, which I've also blogged about, I'll link to that in the show notes, is the idea that you can lead a lunchtime learning session for your colleagues on a topic of your choice. Some people call these lunch and learns, but actually when I was writing my book, I discovered that that's a trademark term, so don't use that. It's an amazing communication skill development opportunity because it allows you to speak to your peers in a relatively low pressure environment. And you can present on a topic that you are really familiar with, right? So something that is already in your wheelhouse, or you could choose this as a stretch assignment for yourself to learn about something you've been curious to learn about that you're not yet an expert on, and use this vehicle to help you learn and then present about that new topic. And you can make this a relatively short presentation. It allows you just enough of that outside the comfort zone development without going into the panic zone of doing maybe a full day workshop or speaking in front of a large audience or speaking in front of a public audience, because you're speaking in front of your peers and you can keep it pretty low key and small. This allows you to grow your public speaking skills. Another idea, also from my book, and you can develop all kinds of skills with this idea, including communication skills, is to engage in what I've called digital storytelling. What does that mean? Well, you can become like a roving reporter and you can digitally capture, either by audio or video, hot stories from the front line, from customers, from star performers. You can make this about difficult challenges that they've overcome, or workarounds, or how-to videos, or new ideas. And you can then share these videos or audio podcasts with the rest of the organization. So your organization will definitely benefit from you doing this. And you can leverage this method to develop your interpersonal communication skills, you can develop your interviewing skills, and you can even develop your public speaking skills if you choose to be in front of the mic or in front of the camera, because actually you don't even have to do that. And finally, another way to develop your more written communication skills is you can take on a volunteer role that allows you to practice your writing, like writing the newsletter or writing website copy for your favorite charity or for your professional association's local chapter. I've mentioned this before. Volunteering is such a great way to get to practice on someone else's turf. And so your mess ups are not felt by your current job, but the skills you build are, right? You bring them back to your current job and you put them to good use. It's such a great way. So that was two different skill ideas, right? Leadership and communication skills. A third totally transferable skill idea is networking and relationship building. Honing your ability to connect with others, both within and outside your current organization, and building trusting relationships is such an important skill. And this practice of doing it now while you're in your current role will allow you to continue to expand your access to information, to new ideas, to opportunities, and to support. And you will bring your network with you to every new role. And that way, you'll be expanding the circle of available supports and resources and inputs that enhance innovation in your new organization, which makes you a very valuable employee. Now, I've blogged about the importance of what I call being in the business of building and maintaining bridges or relationships in every job, and not just thinking about not burning bridges when you're leaving. So if you become an active bridge maintenance person, you can ensure that you are connecting with your current coworkers in a way that allows you to upkeep that connection even when you're no longer in the same workplace, right? Because you might leave, they might leave. The most obvious way is to just ensure that you're linked with people on LinkedIn, because people tend to keep that up to date. And as a tip, be sure that your own LinkedIn account is not tied to your current work email address, but rather to a permanent email address that you keep with you as you shift employment. Also, another idea is that you can set up all kinds of small, doable daily or weekly networking habits that you can keep up and stay in touch with your contacts. Let me give you 4 different examples. You can like or comment and or share their business related social media updates and posts. So for example, somebody that is already in your network uploads an interesting post, an article, or a status update on LinkedIn. Well, when you like their comment or their status update, or when you comment on it, which is even better than just liking, or when you share it, which is even better than those other 2, you are enhancing your connection with that person. They'll feel gratitude towards you for sharing their work or their ideas, and that will help you build that connection. Also, you can create introductions between people that you know in your network that should know each other. And that way you are building and enhancing those bridges and adding value. Just make sure that you make those double opt-in introductions. And I have both a blog post and a podcast episode about how to do that. Another idea, you can send people articles that you think might be of interest to them with a personal note that explains why you're sending it to them, and even asking them how they're doing or wishing them well. Again, easy way to keep in touch with people. And finally, you can send people a really simple note of appreciation and bonus points if you send this in the snail mail version, because everybody gets a lot of texts and emails. And even if you don't, those are fine because it's better than nothing. So I've given you some ideas for how networking and building relationships can be a skill that you build and a network that you build that allows you to transfer into your next job and add value there. A 4th totally transferable skill idea is kind of out there, flexibility. Yeah. In our VUCA world, VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Being able to respond in a more flexible and nimble way to unexpected information or quick changes and plans is a crucial skill. That's such a marketable and important skill. So you can work on building that. So assuming that you can't really take a training class on flexibility or maybe an e-learning program, and probably it's not available and maybe it's not the best way to develop this skill. I actually wrote a case study in my book about this. I'm going to give you 3 specific ideas how you can develop flexibility outside the classroom and using a variety of methods that I described in my book. So the first one is self-directed learning. Self-directed learning just means learning at your own pace, on your own time. And it can involve reading or listening or watching or doing. So in this case, to develop flexibility, my suggestion is that you can just read at least 3 different books on change and flexibility, and then write a summary of the key lessons that you can apply from each book. Another way you can build this skill of flexibility is special teams. You can join an action learning task force or some kind of a special team in your organization where you're adding value, like a process improvement team or a tiger team. And in this team, my challenge to you would be to take on a more observant and quiet role during the problem solving and project planning meetings. And in that way, you will allow yourself to understand and to encourage multiple views and perspectives for each problem, rather than if you tend to be the kind of person who already has an idea and gets kind of rigidly attached to their idea. Being more flexible would mean holding back your ideas and reserving judgment and really listening and allowing others to have multiple views and also allowing yourself to have multiple views. So personally, write down 3 different explanations for each idea or each judgment that you think of before you articulate your opinion in the meeting. This will allow you to really stretch that flexibility muscle. And then a 3rd idea for developing flexibility outside the classroom is taking on a job rotation assignment. So you can complete a job rotation assignment in another department or in another location that is known to be under a lot of stress or pressure to gain a new perspective on the organizational issues and develop new ways of working, especially in a challenging environment. And as you're doing that, keep a journal and write down challenges that you experience, insights that you have, and how you could handle those aspects more effectively in the future. And there, you can learn while on the job and not in a classroom. Okay, we've described 4 different skill ideas, and now the 5th one that we're going to cover today is totally transferable skill idea number 5, creativity. There was an IBM study of CEOs where the CEOs thought that, and I quote, more than rigor, management discipline, integrity, or even vision, successfully navigating in an increasingly complex world will require creativity. CEOs were saying that they think the number one skill people need is creativity. So that's a skill you can work on. And there are so many different ways to develop creativity. You just need to be creative and think of them. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'll give you some ideas. So in episode 7, oh my goodness, a long time ago on the TalentGrow Show, I had Herrmann Ad. She's a whole brain thinking expert. And she gave a lot of ideas, but she provided a great suggestion for how you can build the habit of practicing and cultivating your creativity. She suggested, and I quote, carve out time in your schedules every single week devoted to your own learning development. Make stretching outside your comfort zone a daily habit and start with something small, even just 20 minutes a day. So how can you push yourself outside your comfort zone with something new every single day? Another idea for increasing creativity that I've blogged about is one that I learned from my own self-directed learning. In this case, I listen to a lot of podcasts and recordings because I love learning in an audio format. And it's really easy to implement. So I was listening to a recorded session from the Creativity in Business Telesummit, which was hosted by my friend Michelle James from the Center for Creative Emergence. And you might remember her from episode 23 of the TalentGrow Show. And she had all these great interviews with creative leaders, and we're focused on creativity in business, obviously. And one of them, the guest was Lee Killian, and she described a practice that she called algorithmic brainstorming. Now, what that means is, she said, when you're contemplating a new goal or a topic you want to write about, or a question that you're grappling with, do a Google image search on that word or on that phrase or on that question and see what comes up. In other words, you do a Google search, but instead of looking for the version that says web, you click on the version that says image. And then she said, just look at the images that are generated by Google's algorithmic search. And that encourages your mind to use both hemispheres of your brain, right and the left, and to think about the idea both in terms of the linear, logical, linguistic left brain, as well as the metaphoric, imagery-based right brain. It enhances your ability to think creatively about the subject and generate fresh insights. And I've created a similar version for myself. You know, I love learning that from her. I actually use Flickr, Flickr, and they have a Creative Commons image gallery, which I use actually for coming up with images for my PowerPoint presentations and for the blog posts. And it brings, in my opinion, even richer images than Google. So this is especially true if you apply a trick that I learned from another self-directed learning listening episode where I was listening to Tim Ferriss, the blogger and author and podcaster. And he said, in Flickr, there's a way to search by relevance or to search by interesting. And that really creates very unique search results. And you can see some cool images that can spark up your creativity. That's all the ideas that I have for you this time. It was a lot. So let's summarize. First of all, you own your development. So you should, I think, be proactive to develop your own skills that you need for your current role and for any future roles. And you can and should develop them while you're still in your current one. You don't need to wait. And while the skills each of us wants to grow are specific and unique to us individually, I've shared 5 broadly useful skills that I think you will benefit from growing. And I suggested a variety of specific non-training, low-budget ideas for how you could develop them. And while working on your own development with the blessing and support of your current supervisor is great and ideal, the good news is that you can totally do this on the side or even on the job without any official involvement from your current boss, if that's not possible. Well, there you have it, talent growers. It's the end of this episode. I hope that you found it valuable, and I would love to hear what your biggest aha was or takeaway, and what other ideas you have for proactively building and developing transferable skills while you're in your current role to prepare yourself for your next one. And if you've tried any of these ideas that I've shared, how did it go? Report back, okay? I always love to hear from you and would welcome your feedback as well as input for what you'd like me to cover on a future Ask Halelly episode. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow, and this is the TalentGrow Show. I thank you for listening. I really appreciate you spending time here. And until the next time, make today great.
Thanks for listening to the TalentGrow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.